that you think you might take, right, at a certain point is not necessarily, right, the path that you're on 15 years later. Like, I never would have necessarily predicted when I got out of school that I would be, working with Pokemon Company or working with Dior or, having a studio engaged in architecture and all of these things. It's funny, I was listening to Ben Baller's podcast like a couple weeks ago. It was
He's on next week.
It was the one with Ice-T.
Yeah.
And your name came up. Did you listen to that one?
I didn't hear what he said.
Well, he's talking about old Rockefeller Records days and early, and honestly, I didn't know that. It was this whole history. I can't remember exactly what he was saying, but he was basically giving you props for the origins of a lot of the things that there you go.
Yeah, no, but go ahead, please. Tell me.
No, it was just cool to hear your name come up in this, other context. And I think, to this day, if somebody asked me what you do, I don't know if I could describe it.
Right.
It's you're like this multi-hyphenate. And I think that that's an area that, I haven't necessarily restricted an artist, but the mediums in which I worked have varied.
Yeah, I love this collaboration with Kim Jones and Dior. I mean, to your point, you've worked with them before, but I think your personality has now been draped on garments that people wear you're actually wearing one right now. But what's amazing to me is this is how people like yourself, people like myself, you stay in play. We had a show the other day about you literally can give up at any point. You can get discouraged at any point. But as long as you keep putting one foot in front of the other, you end up getting to, and you just said it, you didn't intend to do fat. You didn't intend to do some of the things you do, but it happened because you kept going.
Yeah. And that idea is, I think, going to be particularly important now. And, as things change over the next year or two, given the, where the economy is going to be at, creative industries are going to be at, people are going to have to find new ways to be creative, to show their creative output. And, I can't remember, somebody posted this recently. It was a list of companies that started during either the Great Depression or
the recession,
all of these things.
Yeah.
And a lot of them were companies that were innovating things that were lacking in that particular moment. And I definitely foresee that there are going to be a lot of galleries, a lot of artists that do not make it through this period. And there's going to be others that actually find some way to rise, out of this. And, that combined with the idea that a lot of the big artistic movements, certainly if you think about what came out of the World Wars, surrealism coming out of World War I, in the United States, the idea of abstract expressionism with Jackson Pollock and that whole thing came out after World War II. These kind of global shared experiences that influence not just individual people or individual societies, but everyone.
Right. Yeah.
It's a game changer for sure.
Yeah, and I think even with you, there are many branches to a tree. I think people often get stuck in one thing, and I think with times like this, it's ironic too that you've created these objects like New York City, paper stands, and but the world, because when this first started, people didn't really take it serious. Then as it got serious, it was wait, apocalyptic and zombies and these things are gonna happen. And I'm thinking about you, and I'm he's literally showing after the dust settles through his art, but. In that, too, you've also been able to adapt and adjust. And I think even with the Kim Jones partnership with Dior, and these are the things that will keep you in play as long as you want to be in the game, Daniel. Mm-hmm. And I love the offering, but people are asking on the feed, beginnings, were you the artist? Because I see you drawing the images before you make them. I see the actual, art skill set as far as drawing is concerned. Was that early for you, or did you... What was the pivotal moment for you to get into that?
So early on, when I was 12, I was doing photography a lot. My grandfather was kind of an amateur photographer. He gave me a camera. That was kind of my earliest expression that I thought of as something that was kind of art, right? And I went to a specialized high school in Miami called DASH, Design and Architecture Senior High School, and focused primarily on architecture and drawing there. I thought I wanted to study architecture, but wasn't accepted in the architecture school. So I
so you didn't make it. They didn't take the genius that is today. Oh, good note.
No, but I did get into the art school at Cooper Union and studied art there, but primarily focused in painting. So painting and drawing was my main focus during that time. And in some ways, I think it was a benefit because following school, you know, I didn't have any money. I didn't have a gallery. I didn't know how to get into the art world. All of these things that you don't really learn in school. And the painting allowed me in a small space with very inexpensive materials to illustrate these larger ideas, which later would become sculptural work. You know, somebody was asking me about this the other day. It's like, how do you find a gallery, you know, when you're young? And I didn't know the answer to that.
I think, you know, for all creatives, if you're passionate, I mean, look at D Nice. Like, D Nice will be 50 in June. And it took him, I mean, no matter the success he had as a 15 and 17-year-old Boogie Down Productions, I mean, it took him to his 49th year of life. He will never have to play a record he doesn't want to play at a party again. He will never have to be asked what he does. The world, now, you know, and that's a testament, though, to just like you were saying. You know, if you do you, if you are you long enough, they will pay you to be you. It's how you present it. So I've been following for some years now just to see, you know, because I remember I'm looking at the rake in the sand in the kimono trees. I don't even know if that's the name of the tree, but I'm looking at this nuance, and I'm like, okay, cool. But then I'm looking at the snarkitecture and what seems to be cement and how you mold, and like I said, the Superman crystals, and I'm like, that shit is all over the place, but it makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, and that's art.
Yeah, it's not a straight line, you know. For
that's
sure.
Beautiful. So is that concrete? I mean, because your desk, you were chopping away at a desk. It looks like, I don't know, but you're a master.
No, so that one
was that.
That one's actually it's a type of foam that's used in construction, and so I cut it out of that originally, made a mold of that, and then recast that in a resin.
Because I'm like, yo, he's over there taking like concrete and like. It's amazing. And what are these crystals? I mean, you don't have to tell your formula, but like, it's amazing. It's not confusing. It's like, whoa, like how do you take the Porsche and the DeLorean and you put in these holes of,
Well, so those are a little bit different, but just to give a sense of, if any, you know, any artist out there, if you go to school, you study mold making, right? And the easiest way to think about mold making is like an ice tray and an ice cube. So the tray is a shape. When you put the ice in and it freezes, it takes the form of what it's inside. I make molds that are much more complicated than that, which may contain like a face or a form within that, right? And typically, you take a mold of an existing object. So early on, when I first started this Future Relic series, I was doing cameras and like technological devices.
Yeah.
You know, like the radios that you talked about. And I would take the original, make a mold of that, and then fill that with volcanic ash, crystal, and like a binder that kind of holds everything together. And, you know, sometimes in the beginning, I'd come back to the studio the next day, and the whole thing will have like melted and kind of fallen apart. There wasn't there's no like class that you can take in school that's going to teach you how to do that. So a lot of it was really trial and error.
Right.
A lot of failure. Right? And eventually finding like literally a recipe to be able to create those objects. Some of the more recent complex works, like the Greek and Roman and ancient Egyptian statues.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, is that like a passion of yours? Because that's fairly new, correct?
That's why, I mean, I unveiled those, the show opened in January. Feels like 10 years ago, but it was just like 2 months ago.
Right.
That was a particular interesting scenario because I'm working on a large exhibition later this year in France at a museum which is connected to the Louvre, and they house all of their objects together. So I went to the storage facility, and in the facility there are all of these other molds of the Venus de Milo, which is one of the most famous sculptures on the planet.
Yeah.
Works from Michelangelo, all of these incredible masterpieces. And I said to them, can I use those molds to create my work from them? And they were like, absolutely not. That's, French patrimony, and you're not gonna touch that. But over time,
they were like this. Fuck you, you're creative.
Well, they about it in their French way.
Right.
Eventually, because I've worked with Emmanuel Perrotin for a number of years, and basically explained to them, look, I'm coming at this from a perspective of respect, and really, I'm not going to damage the molds. So eventually, they let me use them. The one caveat was that I had to go there. So all those works were created in France, in the location of the Louvre studio.
So you have a little mild gangster in you a little bit, Daniel. Like, it seems to me like this disruptive niceness gets you far in life.
One thing that I learned pretty early on is, like, somebody will say no to you, like, only a couple times. Eventually, most people, you could wear them down. And it might not be the same person, but the same goal that you're trying to achieve, You just keep going at it, find a different way, find the back door, find this person that's going to help you get in there. Eventually,
but it doesn't hurt to have, friends that are constantly speaking on your behalf when you're not in the room. Like, and this is the thing I want to, and I know you got to go soon, but relationships, and I look at, like, even me reaching out to you, like, I mean, I've bought a, sculpture, I bought a coffee table book, I just supported because I was a fan. And then it becomes, we're communicating on social. And then I'm like, yo, do the Kenny Burns show. That's the relationship that was built. Then I tell people all the time, and this is case in point to you getting those molds. It's like, if people know anything about French culture and then the French art culture, they're the most snobbiest people on the planet. And it's fact, and it's fine. But in there, they had to be seeing you, all over the place. I mean, your relationships, Kim Jones, all the things you do. And that's a benefit in that. And I just want you to speak to how important relationships are.
I mean, I think, number one, it's, typically people hang out with people that are like them, interested in the same things, in their kind of circle. Most of my friends are not artists,
Yeah.
They're people in music, they're people in fashion, people in architecture and dance and all these other mediums. And those are usually the people that have helped me to enter some of these, of a good example, but, people like Pharrell. Pharrell's been a huge supporter of mine, literally for 10 years. Wow. No reason to do that, just because he's into the work. And, we've never really done big things together, but it's more that we have a mutual respect. I'm interested in his craft, and I think he's kind of, multi-hyphenate as well.
Yeah, it's a great example, by the way. And happy birthday to Pharrell.
Happy birthday, P. He turned 22,
Yo, his skin, like, people say I have good skin. I'm 47. People say I have good skin. That man, I don't know what he's doing. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I keep thinking, like, what's the point that he's actually going to look old?
Yeah.
When's that going to be? He's awesome. I'm working on some crazy new stuff with him now that's, like, different than anything either one of us has ever done. That's really about supporting this moment. And it's ironic because sometimes, you work on an idea for a couple years, and it's funny because he had been on me with this idea for years. He kept telling me about it, and it's kind of a chore because it's not a project that has a specific supporter or anyone behind it besides us. And so on New Year's Day, no joke, this year, he FaceTimes me on New Year's Day, and he goes, "This is the year. You're either going to do it, or I'm going to go to somebody else and do this project with them." Right. So he literally said that to me. So I told him, look, give me the month. I'm going to put this together. January 31st, I sent him the deck, and we're starting this thing. It's a really interesting project. But, sometimes these things just take longer.
And you got to be patient. You got to be patient but diligent. And this is a prime example that dreams create the future. I just want to tell you, I believe in giving people their flowers when I'm in their face. In this case, when I'm in the IG, FaceTime, whatever world. You are necessary. The things you're doing are necessary. I have a lot of artists live with us right now that I support. I mean, I'll walk you through the home one day so you can see how much art I have and just how many different artists that I support. You are one of them, and you are one of the more necessary ones as well, because your thought pattern, man. I tell people all the time, real creatives create like children. You don't have a limit when you're a child. You don't have parameters and mortgages and all types of shit that keep you from, actually pursuing your dreams, right? But you have this innate ability to connect. And I'm sure there are a lot of failures we don't see, but these successes that we do are a pleasure, my brother.
I appreciate that, man. And same to you.
All right, brother. Well, you get to your next call, man.
I appreciate it.
Thank you for joining the Kenny Burns Show, and I'll be buying something as soon as Tenderoni is over.
All right, man. Thank you.
All right, family.